Visa and MasterCard didn't just sell you debt. They spent half a century systematically erasing 20 specific frugal habits that made American families debt-free. In 1962, an Ohio hardware store clerk named on the back of his daughter's wedding photo retired at 51. He never owned a credit card. He paid cash for 2 houses, 3 trucks, and a 4-year degree. Today, the average American household carries $8,000 in revolving debt and pays $130,000 in lifetime interest. Number 14 on this list saved one Pennsylvania family over $400,000. Number 3 was taught in American home economics classes until somebody quietly removed it in 1978. Hit subscribe. What you learn could change everything. Number 20. The cash envelope system. In 1955, every American household with a checkbook kept a row of paper envelopes on the kitchen counter. One was labeled groceries. One was rent. One was the electric bill. One was a small envelope marked Christmas. On payday, the husband cashed his check, brought the money home, and the wife sorted bills into envelopes one stack at a time. When an envelope ran empty, spending in that category stopped until the next paycheck. There was no negotiation. There was no overdraft. Children learned to read by sounding out the labels on the envelopes their mother set out each Friday afternoon. Studies done in the 1960s by household economists at Cornell and Iowa State showed that families using the envelope method spent 18 to 23% less on discretionary categories than families who pooled their cash. Here is what the credit card industry needed you to forget. The envelope system is not a budgeting technique. It is a hard cap. There is no way to overspend an envelope. The money is either there or it is not. Modern Americans replaced the envelopes with Bank AmeriCard and MasterCharge in the 1970s, and average household discretionary spending climbed 31% within a decade. Industry analysts at the time called it increased consumer participation. Your grandmother called it borrowing against next month's groceries. One family in Ohio posted their books online last year. They cut monthly spending by $740 in 8 weeks by returning to paper envelopes. They paid off their entire car loan in 14 months and finally started a real emergency fund. They knew. We forgot. Number 19, the layaway counter. Before plastic, every American department store had a layaway department. You picked out the coat. The clerk wrote your name on a tag. You paid 10% down. The store held the coat in a back room until you finished paying it off, usually within 90 days, with 0 interest and no fees. Sears, JCPenney, Montgomery Ward, and Kmart all ran active layaway programs through the 1980s. A family putting a $200 coat on layaway in 1975 paid $200. No more, no less. The store made its profit on the markup, not on the financing. In 1985, the credit card industry began aggressive negotiations with major retailers. The pitch was simple. Layaway tied up inventory for 3 months. A credit card transaction settled the same week, and the issuing bank paid the retailer immediately. The retailer also collected a small share of the interest the customer would later pay. Layaway disappeared from most major chains between 1988 and 1995. The story sold to the public was that layaway was old-fashioned and customers preferred convenience. The internal numbers told a different story. Department store profit margins on credit card sales were 4 to 7% higher than on layaway sales because of interchange fees and finance share. Walmart briefly brought layaway back in 2011 as a holiday promotion. They killed it again in 2017 when their store credit card cleared higher margins. Layaway never died. It was killed because it did not pay enough. Number 18, the passbook savings account. In 1965, a working American with a regular job opened a savings account at the local bank and received a small, leather-bound passbook. Every deposit was hand-stamped by the teller. Every interest payment was hand-stamped. The book sat on the kitchen counter as physical proof of household savings. The rate of interest on a standard passbook account in 1965 was 4 to 5%. By 1979, it had climbed to 5.25%, which was the federal ceiling under Regulation Q. A working couple with $15,000 in savings earned around $750 a year in interest, fully passive, with no penalty for withdrawal. After the 1980 Depository Institutions Deregulation Act removed the Regulation Q ceiling, banks shifted their balance sheets away from depositor interest and toward consumer lending. Passbook rates collapsed. The standard rate today on a passbook or basic savings account at a major American bank is 0.45%. The same $15,000 now earns about $67 a year. The banks did not stop offering savings accounts. They simply stopped competing for your deposits because the credit card division was suddenly more profitable than the savings division. One retired teacher in upstate New York still keeps her original 1968 passbook in a drawer. The last stamped interest payment shows $43 in a single quarter. She earned more on $15,000 in 1979 than her grandson earns on $40,000 today. Her grandchildren keep their savings on Venmo and earn nothing at all. Number 17. The Christmas Club account. In 1955, almost every American bank ran a Christmas Club program. A working family deposited $2 a week into a special account starting in January. By Thanksgiving, the account held about $100, which was real money in 1955, equivalent to roughly $1,200 today. The bank paid 4 to 6% interest on the balance and handed the family a check the week before the holidays. Department stores ran parallel layaway programs timed to release Christmas Club withdrawals. The two systems worked together. Christmas was paid for in cash, in advance, with money the family had earned and the bank had paid them to save. The last major Christmas Club program in the United States was discontinued by a regional bank in Pennsylvania in 2019. The reason given was low customer interest. The actual reason was that banks make 18 to 24% on Christmas spending charged to credit cards and 0% on Christmas spending saved up in advance. One small credit union in rural Wisconsin still runs a Christmas Club account. Their members deposit an average of $1,400 a year. The credit union pays 3.5% interest. Members cash out the week before Thanksgiving and pay for the holidays without a single dollar of debt. The program has 312 active members. They knew. We forgot. Number 16. The Household Ledger Book. In 1958, almost every American mother kept a ledger book in the kitchen drawer. It was usually a hardcover green or black book from Woolworths, ruled with columns for date, item, amount, and category. Every single household expense was entered by hand on the evening of the day it was spent. By the end of the month, the totals were added up in pencil at the bottom of each column. The family knew exactly what they had spent on groceries, on heat, on the children, and on themselves. There were no estimates. There were no apps. There was a book. Studies by the U.S. Bureau of Home Economics in the 1950s found that families who kept a written ledger saved on average 22% more than families who did not, regardless of income level. The act of writing each expense down in pen, by hand, changed the spending behavior of the writer. The credit card industry replaced the ledger book with the monthly statement. The monthly statement arrived after the spending had already happened. By the time the family saw the total, the money was gone and the interest had already begun accruing. One bookkeeper in Tennessee, recently retired, kept her household ledger from 1971 through 2018. She paid cash for 2 homes and 3 vehicles in those 47 years. Her ledgers fill a single banker's box in her closet. Number 15, paying for a car in full. In 1962, the average American working-class family bought a used car for $400 and paid for it in cash. The transaction took an afternoon. A check or a money order was handed across a desk at the dealership, keys were exchanged, and the car was driven home with no further obligation. By 1975, more than half of all car purchases were dealer financed at rates between 6 and 9% over 3 years. By 2024, the average new car loan in the United States ran 68 months at an average rate of 9.6%, with the average monthly payment now $742. Americans paid an additional $116 billion in auto loan interest in a single year. Here is what the math actually looks like. A $30,000 car, financed for 68 months at 9.6% costs the buyer $38,400 by the time it is paid off. That same car, bought in cash by a family that saved $400 a month for 6 years, costs $30,000. The difference is $8,400. The difference is a year of college, or a down payment on a house, or a fully funded emergency fund. One mechanic in Indiana has paid cash for every vehicle he has owned since 1979. He drives a 2008 pickup with 287,000 miles on it. He owes nobody. Number 14, the Pennsylvania household. This is the family teased at the beginning. In 1968, a steel worker and his wife in Pittsburgh decided together to make one rule and keep it for the rest of their lives. They would never pay interest on anything except a house. No credit cards, no financed appliances, no buy now pay later furniture, no store credit. They kept Christmas clubs, passbook savings, and a handwritten ledger. He retired at 63. She lived to 91. When the last surviving daughter ran the numbers in 2024, the family had paid a lifetime total of $11,000 in interest on a single house purchased in 1969. The Federal Reserve estimates the average American household pays $402,000 in lifetime interest across all forms of credit. The Pennsylvania family had saved $391,000 on interest alone. That money paid for 2 grandchildren's college educations and a small commercial property that the family still owns. Nothing about what they did was sophisticated. They simply refused to participate in a system that profited from their spending. They knew. We forgot. Number 13, the Sunday financial conversation. Before personal finance became a billion-dollar industry, almost every American household had a weekly financial meeting. It happened on Sunday afternoon, usually after church, usually at the kitchen table. The husband and wife sat down with the household ledger, the checkbook, and the upcoming bills. They reviewed the previous week's spending, agreed on the coming week's spending, and divided cash into envelopes. The conversation lasted under 30 minutes. It happened every single week for the entire marriage. Surveys by family sociologists at the University of Chicago in the 1960s found that 73% of married American couples held a regular weekly money meeting. By 2019, the same survey found the number had dropped to 9%. Financial advisors today charge $250 an hour to mediate the same conversation that 2 adults used to have for free on a Sunday afternoon. Number 12, the deep pantry. In 1960, an American kitchen held a 30-day food supply at all times. Flour, sugar, rice, beans, and canned vegetables filled basement shelves. Bulk purchases were made twice a year at a local grocer's wholesale window. Meat was bought from a butcher in quarter or half-cow lots, frozen on the family's own terms. The household never paid retail for staple food. The cost difference versus weekly retail was 28 to 34% per USDA records. A family of 4 spending $40 a week at retail would have spent about $27 on bulk equivalent. Convenience food brands replaced the deep pantry in the 1970s. Today, the average American family throws away over $1,500 in spoiled food a year. The pantry never spoiled. Number 11, paying cash for a house. In 1955, the median American home cost $11,400, and the median household income was $4,800. A working family could buy a home outright in 3 years of disciplined saving, and many did. Mortgage-free homeownership was the norm in rural areas and small towns into the 1960s. The Federal Housing Administration changed the equation in 1968 when it formally encouraged 30-year mortgages as the standard product. Within a decade, the home ownership without debt rate among working Americans dropped from 38% to 11%. One Iowa farmer who bought 80 acres in 1971 with 1 decade of soybean profits later sold the same land for $1.2 million in 2019. He never paid $1 of mortgage interest. He died debt-free. Number 10, the hand-me-down economy. Until the late 1970s, almost no American family bought new children's clothing for any child past the firstborn. Hand-me-downs flowed in 3 directions, from older siblings to younger ones, from cousins across families, from neighbors with older children. A family with 4 children typically bought a single full wardrobe and rotated it for 15 years. Furniture, bicycles, school supplies, and vehicles followed the same path. The retail children's clothing market in the United States was less than $1 billion in 1975. By 2024, it had grown to $208 billion. The clothes are not better. The children are not better dressed. The Fed simply needed somewhere to lend more credit, and household consumption of disposable goods was the channel they engineered. Number 9. Buy once and cry once. Before planned obsolescence became the dominant industrial strategy, American manufacturers built household goods to last 50 years. A 1955 cast iron skillet still works today. A 1960 KitchenAid stand mixer still works today. A 1968 Sunbeam toaster outlasts every $25 replacement bought since. The math is brutal. A $400 cast iron skillet bought once in 1955 cost less in inflation-adjusted dollars than the $30 nonstick pan replaced every 18 months for 60 years. The total cost of nonstick replacements over a lifetime exceeds $1,400 and produces a landfill of warped aluminum. The trade-off was deliberate. Disposable goods required revolving credit. Lifetime goods required none. Lifetime goods also required no further sales. The choice was not yours to make. Number 8. Household manufacturing. In 1950, a working-class American family made 15 to 20% of its annual consumables at home. Soap, candles, cleaning products, preserves, bread, and home-cured meat. The labor was done by the wife and children during evenings and weekends. The cost savings versus retail purchase ran 60 to 75% on each category. In 1973, the Federal Reserve published an internal analysis on the household production gap. The conclusion was direct. Households produced too much of their own consumption. Manufacturers needed that production transferred to the market in order to expand consumer credit and absorb the dollar inflation the Fed had unleashed by exiting Bretton Woods 2 years earlier. Marketing campaigns followed. Home production was reframed as drudgery. Convenience became freedom. The household stopped producing. The credit card industry was born. Number 7. The cash wedding. In 1962, the average American wedding cost $1,800 and was paid for entirely in cash by the bride's family. The reception was held at the family home or the church basement. Decorations were homemade. The dress was sewn by an aunt or borrowed from an older cousin. The cake was baked by a friend. The total represented roughly 4 months of the father's salary and was saved for over a decade. By 2024, the average American wedding cost $35,000, with 68% paid on credit. Wedding loan products in 2023 generated over $1.8 billion in interest revenue for banks. The wedding industry was a $76 billion market. None of that money existed in 1962. The same wedding produced the same marriage. The difference is 20 years of debt instead of a single afternoon of celebration. Number 6. The United States Postal Savings System. From 1911 until 1967, the United States Post Office operated a federal savings program that paid 2% interest on deposits, guaranteed by the government, with no fees. At its peak in 1947, the system held over $3.4 billion in deposits from millions of working Americans who did not trust commercial banks after the bank failures of the 1930s. The program was eliminated by an act of Congress in 1966, set to expire in 1967, after sustained lobbying by the American Bankers Association. The reason given was redundancy. The real reason was that commercial banks could not compete with the federal guarantee. Number 5. Hard money. Until 1965, every American dime, quarter, and half dollar was minted from 90% silver. A working family that saved pocket change in a jar accumulated a hedge against inflation without thinking about it. The dimes saved in 1955 are now worth $2.50 each in melt value. The quarters are worth over $6 each. A single mason jar full of pre-1965 coins, the kind almost every American kitchen held in 1962, is worth roughly $4,000 today. The Coinage Act of 1965 removed silver from circulating coins. The reason given was inflation in silver prices. The real reason was that the dollar was being deliberately debased. Number 4. The no monthly payments rule. In 1958, a significant portion of American households followed a simple discipline. They refused to accept any monthly payment obligation. No car payments, no appliance financing, no store credit, no insurance premiums paid monthly, no subscriptions to anything. If a thing could not be bought outright in cash, the family did not buy it. The math behind the rule was simple. An American family with no monthly obligations could survive a job loss for as long as their savings lasted. A family with $1,800 in monthly payments needed $21,600 in replacement income within 30 days. One was resilience. The other was a trap. Number 3, the savings first paycheck. This is the one teased earlier. Before 1978, American home economics classes formally taught every female high school student a single financial rule that overrode all others. On payday, the first dollars out of the paycheck went directly into the savings account, before any bill, before any grocery, before any rent. The target rate was 25% of gross income. The justification was direct. You do not have a budget. You have a savings rate. Everything else adjusts. In 1978, the National Association of Home Economists voted to remove the rule from the curriculum. The replacement was a flexible spending plan that paid bills first and saved what was left, if anything. The change was lobbied for by the consumer credit industry through educational nonprofits funded by the American Bankers Association. American households went from saving 13% of income in 1975 to saving 4% by 2005. They knew, we forgot. Number 2, the household price book. Until the early 1980s, almost every American mother kept a small spiral notebook in her purse tracking prices at every store. Milk at A&P, flour at Kroger, coffee at the corner market. The book was updated weekly. When she went grocery shopping, she knew the lowest price in town on every item before she walked through the door. The price book turned grocery shopping from a transaction into a strategy. Studies in 1976 showed that price book mothers spent 19% less on groceries. The credit card industry needed this practice to die. A price book required cash discipline. A credit card required no discipline at all. Marketing campaigns in the 1980s reframed price-conscious shopping as outdated. The modern grocery app shows you the price after you have already committed to the trip. The price book showed you the price before you left the house. They knew. We forgot. Number 1, the integrated household economy. The greatest forgotten frugal habit was not a technique. It was a worldview. Until 1980, the American household functioned as a single economic unit. Income was pooled. Decisions were made at the kitchen table. Wealth was built across decades. The credit card industry quietly broke this unit apart. Each spouse got a separate card. Each adult child got their own. Each transaction generated its own debt, its own interest, its own statement. The family economy was fragmented into a collection of individual consumers. Today, the average American household contains 2.6 people and 7.4 separate credit accounts. Your grandmother's household ledger produced more wealth per hour than your credit score ever will. The credit score measures whether you are useful to a bank. The ledger measured whether your family was prospering. The two are not the same thing. The two were never the same thing.